Welcome to my talk. Performance depending on size and density in collective systems, and then also some cross-disciplinary features. My name is Heiko Hamann. I'm from the University of Lübeck in Germany. I don't know whether you have heard about the two pizza rule. At least there's rumor that Jeff Bezos, the big boss of Amazon, has this rule on how to determine whether a group or a team is too big. So he says if you order two pizzas and that can't feed the team, then you should split the team. That points us to an interesting challenge. So also in collective intelligence, of course, we want to know what is the optimal team size, the optimal group size or system size. So group size is one thing. We can also look into density. If it's an embodied system, we can check what is actually the number of robots per area, as an example, robotics. And we can also even talk about concentrations once we maybe look at systems from chemistry. So there's no doubt that a system usually can be either too small or too big, right? If the system is too small, then you would actually be able to provide some more resources, but they're just not used. If the system is too big, then the shared resources that are essential for the system are depleted, and agents start to wait to get access to the resource, or they just create a lot of overhead. So there must be this sweet spot in between, right? So usually there will be some best system size or some optimal density. So when we talk about system size and performance, then we should talk about scalability. And when you analyze these systems, you will always find that they depend on at least one scarce shared resource. And that resource can be many different things. It could be, for example, space, as in this system here. So these are ants that have to cross a bridge. And if the density is too high, then they basically run out of space, right? And then they have to organize their traffic in a different way. In some other biological system, you might just run out of food. Or if, to give another example of an engineered system, if you have a network running on radio waves, then, for example, you have a common medium, which is the radio channel, and you have to organize access to that because only one should access it at a time. So when you study system size and performance, that's scalability, what you usually do is you do a measurement in your system of performance over system size. And this is what we see here. So let's look at this first example here. So this is from car traffic. On the vertical axis, we have the flow, like how many cars pass this observed highway section at a time. And the horizontal axis is about the density, like how many cars or vehicles do we observe per kilometer. And you see this, typical shape, right? Then here you see this example of networks that I've mentioned. So we have nodes communicating by radio and using the Aloha protocol. Again, you get this interesting curve. This is from my own work of robots in the so-called stick pulling application or scenario, where two robots have to collaborate at a time. Then here we actually have an example from biology. This is about sugar transport in plants. And also there's an optimal concentration that maximizes the flow. So this is about transport systems, and there would be many other examples from transport systems. And then this one is interesting. So this is taken from a book by Krause and Ruxton, but also Sibley has published on that before. This is about animal groups. So for any species of animals that actually live in groups, it's relatively clear that there should be some like optimal group size in terms of fitness. And this one here is a quite odd example maybe, because this is from chemistry, and what is measured here as what I then would call performance is conductivity in electrolytes. On top of these examples of published data, I also want to give you like 4 kind of arbitrary examples of models that actually work on, well, these scalability issues. So we start with number 1, that's Amdahl's law. That is a model about parallel computing, distributed computing, and that was published rather early. So here in blue. Then in 1993, Gunther published his Universal Scalability Law, or USL in short, which is shown here in green. So he said if you reach a critical system size, like a number of processors, and you go beyond, then what you will observe is that the performance actually will go down, down, down. Then here the yellow line looks very similar. This is one of my own models for swarm robotics, where I work with 2 components in this model. So I give a component modeling interference, so that would actually decrease performance over system size, and another component for collaboration, and that would actually increase over system size. And then, like from this example of chemistry with conductivity in electrolytes, there's the Fuchs-Onsager equation, where they actually also give this kind of parabolic arch curve, which is not shown here. So if we want to find a common model that summarizes all of that, all these maybe common features in these different systems, then it's also clear that this system or this model must be rather abstract, right? So that is, we take a phenomenological approach here, and our model will then certainly be rather macroscopic. So before I give you some hints about my model, I want to give you a quick guide on how to read these performance plots. And so here, this linear function that we haven't talked about yet in number 1, that would be something usually considered to be an optimal case, right? Because you double the system size and you get double the performance. Could you ask for more? Actually, it turns out yes, because there is published work where they report superlinear increases in different systems. Number 2, so if you observe this kind of curve where it saturates, again, this is Amdahl's law, and I would argue if you see that, then something sounds strange, because at some time the system should like decrease in performance if you add more and more and more agents. Number 3 is then about this early increase for small systems, so going from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. And I argue that there you can see like at least 2 qualitatively different types of shapes. You can see this almost linear increase, and you can see this like curvy increase. So if you have this kind of linear increase of performance, then I would say that this actually indicates something about the collaboration in the system. And this linear increase means there is probably rather no or only little collaboration, so that maybe 2 agents have to interact at a time. Then if you have this curvy increase, so in the beginning you have a very slow increase, that means probably that there's quite some collaboration in your system. So a collaboration of 2 or 3, for example. Then last one is number 4. So this is actually about like the right half of these plots, where I would argue you can actually see a similar thing. So again, qualitative differences between almost linear decreases and these like curved nonlinear decreases. And I think they might indicate the degree of interference in the system. And I want to give you an example. In swarm robotics, if you increase the system size too much, so you add robots and more and more and more robots, but they live on a constrained area, then they run out of space. That means more and more robots will be close to each other. They trigger a collision avoidance behavior in each other. And what you can then observe is kind of chain reactions. So now finally about my model, and because of the limited time, I will not really show you all the equations behind, but just a quick walkthrough. So you could argue, well, this is basically a probabilistic finite state machine, and it comes with 3 states. So let's start with the first one. So an agent can be in state free single agent. That means it's not in interaction with anybody, and it's operating by itself, which might be a comfortable situation, maybe, or maybe not. And then we have M. This is the agent that is in contact with multiple other agents, so at least with one or more. So this agent would be ready for collaboration. And then you have C, which is the crowded agent, which then can't really do useful work because it has to queue for a resource, or it's in contention, or it's just like creating a lot of overhead by trying to avoid others. And then, because this is now some kind of microscopic description, we can say, well, this also gives you basically a population model, because I can hopefully count agents that are in state F, M, or C. And then I can give like relative values, like percentages of how many are in F, in M, or in C, by just counting them and then normating by the system size, right? And then, well, actually I'm interested in the performance and not so much in like whatever population model that is and the subpopulations. So these percentages of how many are in state F can then be used or plugged into a performance function where we have here this alpha parameter that then gives value, like a reward for how beneficial it is to be in state F. If it's a scenario where you actually would require collaboration, then alpha should be 0, right? Because you're alone, you're not helping. And then beta, which gives value for being in this multiple contact state, then that should be bigger than 0, right? And gamma usually will be 0 because these are the crowded agents that can't really help. So underlying this, we have an ODE system that we're still in the process of publishing. So also you can ask me and I will be happy to tell you some more details about that. We can do some fitting. So we can fit performance data from, well, that is published from all these different kind of systems and fields. And this is what we've done. We get good fits, but also, yeah, we have these many parameters, so it's not so exciting to have these good fits. Just to let you know, this on the left is from a swarm robotics system. They do foraging in a simulation, and we get this good fit. And then here, this one on the right is again this network of nodes communicating by radio using the Aloha protocol. And also there we get a good fit. But I think this is not really the true value of this model, that we can fit systems. It's rather about this indication if we can fit these different systems. So then these 3 states and the transitions between them actually have some fundamental value or model some fundamental features of scalability across different systems. So maybe this is really a first step towards a unified model so that we can find a common methodology for analyzing scalability in collective intelligence or even in other fields as well. So I hope that I have communicated at least three things in this talk. So hopefully I've raised your awareness of these curves because they are everywhere, right? Then using this figure here, I've given you this quick guide. So you can have now a quick look on these performance curves. And then I argue that we should work together for a common approach to draft or develop a methodology of to study scalability in collective intelligence.